I have good news and I have bad news. Let's start with the good news. It looks like the Steelers are going to have an international game in Ireland, and that's going to be confirmed anytime now, according to Jerry Dulac. It would count as a Steelers home game, and I think that would mean the Steelers are going to have 9 home games in 2025, but it's going to be technically 8 in Pittsburgh. 1 will be out in Ireland. I think it'd still be worth it, though. You know it's going to essentially be a home game over there anyway. Steeler Nation's going to pack the house. And thus far, this would be – they've confirmed 5 international games. This would be the 6th. They got 3 games in London, a game in Berlin, and a game in Madrid. This would be the 6th in Ireland. I think they're shooting for a couple more. Pretty cool, man. Really cool. Steelers having a game in Ireland, I think it'd be sick. I would love to go to the game. Maybe the team rocks those DMR patches for it. Unfortunately, though, we don't really know right now. I don't think we'll know until like the actual schedule release in a few months when the actual like time and date will be. So I guess you can't really make travel plans just yet. I think we can safely say, though, it'll be between, just based off the NFL and international game history, it'll be between the last week in September and like the first week in November. So there's like a 5 or 6 week window, because literally every international game has either been last week of September, in between the last week in September and the first week in November, majority of them being in October. Outside of last year where they did the one on Friday night opening weekend in Brazil with the Eagles-Packers. So if I had to pick, when would I want this Ireland game to happen for the Steelers? I think it's got to be the first or second week in October, right? That just seems right for a football game in Ireland. You got the brisk air, not too cold. Have some Guinnesses. Guinnesses in Ireland, too. Like, they hit different, man. Like, that'd be perfection. Not even saying the Guinnesses over here in America are bad. I like a nice Guinness here from time to time, whether it's in a pounder or it's on the tap through draft. But I hear the ones, the Guinnesses over in Ireland are, like, insane. Guinness is still low-key good over here, but that would just hit, man. First week in October, second week in October. The fall feel over in Ireland. Some Guinnesses. I think it'd be real dope. You guys let me know, though. When would you want the game? I don't think it hits right if it's opening weekend. Don't think it hits right. I think it's got to be in the fall. It's got to be in that window. I don't like first week in September. Don't like first week in November. You got to give me at least something in October, and if I had a preference, probably like the second week. So when would you want the game? When do you think the game hits right over in Ireland? Whether or not you are going to be making the trip or you're just watching on TV. But that was the good news. Steeler game in Ireland. I think it's dope, man. Are you pumped? Are you guys pumped about it? I mean, I am. I think that'll be really sick. But now on to the bad news. So the Steelers' greatest all-time quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, you guys may know him, has a podcast, Footballin', and he said on that podcast that he agreed with Julian Edelman's statement he made a few days ago on the Steelers being stuck in their ways. Here's initially what Edelman said about facing Pittsburgh back in the day and how he thinks they really haven't changed their approach since back when he used to play. That was, however many years ago? 3-4 years ago now, Edelman called it quits.
You knew exactly what they were doing every time, and they still do what they do. They still do the same goddamn shit that when I was playing Tomlin's defense.
Steeler football.
I'm like, we still have linebackers covering the 3 slot?
Yeah.
Every time we play the Steelers, I have at least 9 catches.
Coach,
you would think that they would change it.
They're right.
No, but they do what they do.
And here's how Ben responded to that.
I think there's obviously truth in it. Listen, if Julian Edelman, who played against the Steelers for so long, there's definitely truth to it. If you don't, you got to change with the times. We talked about a little bit last week when we talked about defense, like where's the blitz in, where's this, where's the Dick LeBeau B2 slide and all this stuff. And it's like we're not trying to confuse people like other teams do. Like other teams are confusing people. Look at the end of that Bills-Chiefs game. Spags sent a corner blitz. They said I think the first time all game in the situation where you would never expect and you need it, you confuse and they got home.
Yeah.
It's like we just go through this, you know what? We're just better than you. We're going to line up and we're going to beat you. That works to a certain extent.
Until you meet someone who's not better than you.
At some point, you have to decide that you're going to throw some different wrinkles at teams.
And if you listen to Seven's whole answer, he also mentioned that he would bring up sometimes that the opponent might be doing something different than expected, and it might be a good idea to have some backup plans and counters in the back pocket, and alluded to or hinted at that we're kind of allergic to doing such a thing here, which is just, it's crazy.
Again, I mentioned this at one point when we were doing offensive stuff. Hey, coach, what if they do this? They won't. I'm sorry? What did they do? Mm-hmm. So, I just think, that's something that the Steelers have they got to get away from. They've got to get to a point of, if that's true, and he's saying it, I don't know why it wouldn't be true, but if Julian Edelman says that he's seeing the same thing when he was playing, then must be something to it.
I mean, it's clear we do have a certain approach, and it's gotten us so far for the last however many years, but it's only gotten us so far, which is not far enough. I agree there's something to be said for just having better players, having great players out there. Of course, having good players, having great players is going to help you win. But why not have better players and good players and also have good schemes at the same time? There's literally no rule saying that you can't do both. The Chiefs do both. The Ravens do both. The Bills do both. And what's funny about the Ravens and the Bills is a couple years ago, they were winning games with good players and their franchise quarterback. Yet they said these schemes aren't good enough. The offensive coordinator's not good enough. We got to move on. We got to do something better to help us get over the hump. Ravens move off of Greg Roman. They were winning games, right? They're making it to the playoffs. Said not good enough. Bills, same thing with Ken Dorsey. They had Josh Allen. They were winning games, right? Making the playoffs consistently year in, year out. Ken Dorsey, not good enough anymore. Not going to get us over the hump. Sure, we're winning games. We're around 500, right? I think that's what happened in that season. They had like a little bit of a weird stretch in the middle of it. Got to 6-6. It's like Steelers would be like, oh, we got to still stick with what we got going because at least we're at 500, right? What if we make a change and we go below 500? Living in our fears. Whereas the Bills moved off of Ken Dorsey, got Joe Brady, a guy that won a national championship at LSU because of his play calling, Coach Joe Burrow and that LSU team. And now you see where their offense is. Now, granted, I got to give us credit for moving off from Canada, but we moved. It's like, should we really pat the Steelers on the back here for getting rid of Canada probably 2 years too late? Like at least the Bills did it. Like I think it was like the first year of Ken Dorsey. They saw it wasn't working. Got to move off. Maybe it was in the middle of his second year. But either way, Rams. They have elite players. They have elite quarterback and great schemes. And what's funny is the Rams were the reverse of the Ravens and Bills and how they went about things. They had McVay. They had the genius. They had the guy with the great schemes, right? The great coach. And he looked at Jared Goff and said, he's good. He's above average, but I'm trying to win Super Bowls. It's not good enough. I'm going out of my way to bring in an elite arm talent. Matt Stafford. I'm going to get rid of Goff and give them draft picks to bring in Stafford. Because even though what we had going with Goff was good, it's not good enough. Patriots back in the day, they had the players, they had the schemes. I'm not trying to be negative just to be negative. I just think it's where we're at right now, man. You got a couple guys in Big Ben and Julian Edelman that kind of know what they're talking about when it comes to football. They know what they're seeing out there. They're saying this. We as fans, we're seeing it. We've been seeing it for the last almost decade now. Because this isn't just a one-year thing from last year. We've been seeing the same things repeat itself year in and year out, at least for the couple years after Ben retired. You have an excuse. You're like, all right, this is going to be maybe a little bit of a rebuild. We got a new quarterback in here, Kenny, and all that stuff, but it's been the same stuff. And that is whether or not we've had the elite players or not, because we could go back to the days when we've had Ben and AB. It still doesn't feel like the schemes, game plans have been on the level of other elite teams at the time that we're playing them. In fact, half the time, we're getting outplayed and outcoached, outprepared by lesser teams in the biggest games, in the playoffs, like the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Cleveland Browns. So I do think there needs to be innovation on both sides of the ball. And I thought we saw that at times in 2024, particularly on offense, but then it disappeared out of nowhere for those last 5 or 6 weeks for whatever reason, whether it was coach, quarterback, O-line, receivers. Maybe it was we just really wanted to get back to Steeler football. We prioritized philosophy over success and having an offense more conducive to the 2024 style and what the rest of the NFL is doing. We wanted to zig while everyone is zagging. We wanted to be Steelers first. Make sure we put our stamp on these games as opposed to just trying to be successful. We got to also do it our way of running the football, being conservative, and playing good defense. Well, we ain't doing any of those things. Well, we ain't running the football well, and we ain't playing good defense. So, like, something's got to give here, man. And then on defense, speaking of the defense, yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea to throw in some different blitzes, switch some things up, do some more things to keep the offense guessing. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I get it. Have the better players. If we just have the better players, they're playing better. You can do both, though. You can do both. The Chiefs do both. All these other great teams, they do both on both sides of the ball. Notice that. It doesn't have to be one way or the other way. It doesn't have to be that. It can be both. You can have great players and have great schemes, great coaching along with it. I don't know, man. I don't think this is a hot take. I think it's more of just a common sense take. It's stating the obvious. Have great players, but let's try to help and enhance our players as best as possible. And having the great players part, that's something we got to do better at too. And maybe start rethinking how we allocate certain or how allocate money to certain players and positions. And that goes back to Tomlin too, man. Some of these personnel moves. Moving on from the greatest quarterback in franchise history and sticking with Canada and picking Kenny and having him and Mitch be the new era and Mason. And then moving off of Canada and then moving off of Kenny and going with Russ and Fields and Arthur Smith. We could also talk about, the fact that we drafted Najee, a running back, in the first round, drafting Kendrick Green, playing him out of position, drafting Devin Bush. Like there's all these personnel conversations that we could have too, but that goes back to Tomlin as well. Like no matter if you want to talk about having better players or having the better schemes, the better coaching, all that stuff, it's like funneling back to Tomlin. I think these comments by Edelman and Ben responding to him, like they echo my sentiments after our playoff loss. Unless Tomlin changes his approach or finds some elite quarterback play sooner rather than later, my expectations, it is what it is. The standard is the standard, and we see what the standard has been. We see that. It's not what it used to be. It just seems like we're 4 or 5 years behind in everything we're doing versus the rest of the league, or at least the rest of the league that does it in a proper way. Because again, the thing you can't say about the Steelers is we're above the average in terms of the rest of the NFL teams. We're above that. There's some other organizations, franchises that are dumpster fires. Sure, that helps us, that makes us look good, but the standard is excellence. At least it should be. Greatness, Super Bowls, all that stuff. Like that Russell Wilson offense we saw middle of the season, it was like a breath of fresh air for us, right? Oh man, we haven't seen stuff like this in a minute. Meanwhile, Chiefs and all these other really good teams, they've been doing stuff like that since like 2020. It's like yeah, we've been on that. Now Steelers are just getting up to speed, but all of a sudden we reverted backwards when the games mattered more and more down the stretch. Like that makes sense. Like we couldn't. It was too open of a style. It was too innovative of an offense They're like, we got a little scared. But, oh, wait, we got to go back to the Steeler way a little bit. Let's not forget, run the football, play good defense. I think 7 helped mask some of this stuff for all these years. Because when you have a quarterback like him, you always got a chance. And that's why it's a damn shame the organization and fans took the man for granted at the end. You know, you had the disingenuous thank you 7 slogans, thank you 7 banners and all that bullshit. It's just a shame, man. Everyone thought he was done by saying, you know, thank you 7. It was all disingenuous. It was all BS. He wasn't done. No, he was just carrying the worst constructed team, the worst constructed coaching staff that he's ever been on into the playoffs in 2021. That's all he was doing. Wasn't done. Like Jaden Daniels, he what did he do? Some VR training, like behind the scenes this year to get ready for games. Said it helped him. Looks like it did. We probably won't start doing something like that till like 2030. I hope I'm wrong with all this stuff. I really do. But what's the thing a lot of people have been saying over the last 2-3 weeks, ever since the Steelers got bounced from the playoffs? Things just run their course, man. It's not that crazy of a statement to make. It's happened to the best of them. Andy Reid and the Eagles, Chuck Noll Steelers, Belichick New England. It's not too far of a stretch to say that we are around that point with Coach T. We're around that point. I hope I'm wrong because I like Coach T. I do think he's a good coach. He's going to make the Hall of Fame. I defended him like all the way up till basically this Ravens playoff loss. And it's not even just the fact that we lost. It's how we lost. It's how we ended the season. A lot of the same in what we've been seeing with these Tomlin coach teams in the playoffs in recent years. 0-6, and a lot of these playoff games look the same. This Ravens wildcard game was a chance to flip the script, not only on the lack of playoff success standpoint, but even for how we finished the season. Remember how we were talking at the end of the regular season? It's like, oh, we just went 0-4, finished 10-7, the exact same we did the year prior. Like, what the hell is going on? Tomlin's the common denominator in a lot of this, in all this right here. What's going on? Like, if we get blown out or we look bad in this wild card game, it's fair to start having some conversations. But the saving grace at the time was, in between the end of the regular season and the playoff game against the Ravens, is we still had a playoff game ahead of us. You win in the playoffs, that's the only thing that matters. You can flip that narrative real quick by winning or even just not losing the way that we did. If we lost on a last-second field goal, you could easily talk yourself into, man, we're right there. It was just a bad break here or there. We're right there. It wasn't even close, bro. It wasn't even. It was down 21-0 at half. Defense getting manhandled. Offense stagnant, stale, looking the same. So then you ask yourself, like, now what? Now what? I hope I'm wrong. But unless Coach T, like, seriously changes his approach, really changes some things, which I don't know if I really have confidence in. The dude's been here for 18 years, has done stuff a certain way, and to a degree where he does have success. Like, he is a good coach, but it's just not enough anymore. Just being good, just being above the line, it's not good enough. It's not. If you're talking about for the first year without Ben, yeah, fine. All right. You get some benefit of the doubt there. Maybe even second year. Okay, but now let's see what happens year 3 without Ben. Oh wow, we make some big changes. Russ in here, Arthur Smith, all this stuff. 10-7 again. The approach got to give. Like something's got to give. And I'm not just talking, having a scapegoat coach get out of here, this and that, because we've gone through a bunch of different coaches recently. And it seems like the philosophy, all that, is very similar throughout the course of these years. Hope I'm wrong, but, things just aren't trending in the right direction. Now, getting the quarterback right, though, making the right decision on who should be quarterback in 2025 and getting some elite quarterback play in here, that'll help. That'll definitely help. But, again, it's one thing to have the great players and all that stuff, but you also, you also kind of want to have some good schemes and good philosophies along with it, which I think there are serious questions about with the Steelers. But that's it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments about what Big Ben and Edelman had to say, and also the potential Steeler game out in Ireland. That's it for today's show, though. Stay chilling. Peace.